off the call and get back on in 10 minutes once I get home.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
know when that happens. So thank you everyone for joining. We are now live. Allison is here. We have Mohammed, Anita, myself, and we have, we are going to be broadcasting this live. We're also on Slack. So hopefully folks will be able to join us through that mechanism as well. So let's get right on to it. Let's see if anyone is. So I'm on the Slack as well, so we'll try to keep this thing rolling. So basically, what are we here for? A couple things. The last round of experiments that we ran was to determine the mechanism for putting in place a leadership board, and we used a variety of different democratic principles, different voting mechanisms, participatory democracy. So that survey data and those outcomes nicely to the creation of the website. So where we are now is, can you mute yourself, please? Mohammed, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So where are we right now? So the next phase is based on some critical feedback that Michael Bernstein received, as well as just the general observations from the Slack, and when I say Slack, our community. There have been a lot of very tangible and very valid questions around, okay, what exactly is the leadership board? What's it going to do? What's its function, scope, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's led to some very interesting conversations, not just within the leadership board, which it has, but also now within the community at large. So very much like we engage in a collective activity to determine how we're going to vote in the leadership board, I think this is a good opportunity for us to now explore within the community what is the appropriate scale and scope of the leadership board, what sort of organizational model should it involve, and the like. So this communication is, or this process now is to start putting in play, hopefully, a research agenda that we can do a couple things. We can collect some data points, arrive, maybe test a hypothesis or two with regards to decision making, maybe even contributions or commitment. So we have both sides of the equation. That can then fuel a very robust piece of the CHI conference paper. So I put together a couple different things, some scenarios, some real loose structure that would hopefully guide the conversation without crushing it, with regards to a very loosely defined research agenda. But what I want to do is maybe stress test that a little bit, poke some holes in it, or reaffirm some things. I've engaged, or you all have been very active in the Slack, so let's start converting some of that conversation into some points. So I kind of want to maybe open the forum up. Ankita, I know you and I, we've had some very robust conversations on. Do you want to hop in, or do you want to wait until after you get home to contribute? You're on mute right now. Everyone's on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, what I studied, instead of having a separate problem for each of the three governances that we are trying to moderate, I thought we could solve one problem so that it's easier to compare the three different governments. Because
so you're saying that, let's just say we take the pricing problem, the pricing feature, and we run it through the oligarchy. We run it through the three organizational models.
Yeah. Because each problem Can you hear me?
Yeah, you keep muting and unmuting yourself. I'm not sure if that's you or the system.
Yeah. No, I'm getting a call, so I was just. Oh, Aditi is trying to call me, so I should just tell her to get on the call.
Yes, you should.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys continue talking. I'll just tell her to get on and I'll come back.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Al Mohammed? Al, I know you're having some browser issues.
Hi, do you hear me, guys?
Okay, so, hey, Mohammed, so I don't know, I'm pulling up, Allison is agreeing with, and he, that taking one problem, i.e. this one, the pricing, and running it through the 3 different channels is kind of a cool concept, a cool idea. I'd like for, what are your thoughts on that? Um, we'll just use pricing because it's a very interesting problem for us to challenge. It's got a lot of depth. It's got a lot of meat to it. A lot of opinions, a lot of passion. So I think it's a pretty cool idea. So what would be the pros and cons, or just your knee-jerk response to running that through, we'll just say, a hierarchy, a democratic, and a flat organizational model?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, good. So I'm with Alison that we should have one problem. We should look at it from different perspectives, different approaches,
Yep.
so that we can compare easily. You cannot compare. I mean, we have to compare apple to apple.
Yep.
So let's look at one problem from like flat democracy, representative democracy, and let's look at one problem from different approaches.
Yep.
And then we can judge easily. I mean, we can analyze that. Okay, we have one problem. We look at it from different approaches, and we have this output. So
keep pushing out to the next level, Mohammed. In your mind's eye, what are the success factors? What will determine that one model is preferable or successful versus another one?
You are talking about the measurement, how we are going to measure which, or how we are going, I mean, this one is,
yes.
This is what you are trying to ask for?
That is what I'm asking you, my friend. What would you envision as being the success factors?
Well, can we measure the satisfactions of, we can have 2 measures. We can measure the satisfactions of the crowd, or we can measure the results we get from each of these 3 models.
Talk to me about results then, Mohammed. What do you talk about by that? Satisfaction, good, I like that. What then we talk about results? What would those be in your mind?
I can't hear you.
What would you define as results then from the activity?
Well, I mean, can we say that we find at least some results? Because I mean, some approaches we cannot actually reach to an end or an agreement. So finding a result is itself kind of success.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, satisfaction. Everyone, I think Al is mentioning this on the Slack. She's saying, just to very simplified, maybe a very accurate statement. Doesn't satisfaction equal success, or might it?
It should be one of the success factors, because if the crowd are not satisfied with the platform, they are not going to use it, and they will migrate to another platform. Let's remember that why do people like us? I mean, would like us? I mean, rather than going to Amazon or Upwork, because we are providing like a space for them to express themselves, right?
Yep.
So I mean, this is one of the key factors to measure that we are a successful platform or not.
Yep. Okay. Well, then I just want to push back on, some. What do you mean by satisfaction? Are they satisfied with the outcome? Satisfied with the process? The outcome? Because some people are going to I don't like the outcome, but I'm not going to be happy with the platform. We want to certainly be able to distinguish, like, okay, this wasn't my solution. I don't agree with the end product, but the way we got there, I'm okay with.
Well, I
So how then do we, because I assume that we're going to want to parse that out. Yes?
well,
No?
I never thought that. Yeah, I agree with you. I never thought about it, about the idea in details. I mean, how we are going to measure the success, and
Okay.
I mean, what we should include inside the success. I mean, should we include should we reach out to the directly happy or not happy? Do you feel that you are represented or not represented? Or this might be one of the factors to measure the success.
So then, want to take away from this, Mohammed, is, deep dive into that, okay? What does
Right.
satisfaction, what are the various iterations of satisfaction? The quantitative, the qualitative. I know you've got at your disposal a lot of research work. If you could, find maybe some research into defining satisfaction, or, organizational models that are predicated on some of those factors. I think that could help us then shape what we're going to capture. What questions.
I will take a note and do some research in this area, because I'm very interested in how people are satisfied with their organization and the model and the hierarchy model they are living within. That's one of my interests.
And then as you're in that space, because you may find some of the questions surrounding this, and Allison, I think, raises, again, another good point, is that, the short term versus long term. How scalable, how sustainable are some of these approaches? Excuse me. So if you can do a little digging into that, I think that would be pretty cool. And then we can start sussing out, I think we start putting in context the advantages of a hierarchy, which are clearly, as you mentioned, they're going to be skewed more towards speed, rapid response, but they traditionally tend to have engagement challenges. There's not always a lot of contribution. Historically, they have been a little heavy-handed. That doesn't necessarily need to be the way we do that. But it certainly would be different from, let's say, an open allocation model where there's no hierarchy at all. That being said, then, folks, here's one of the challenges. I mean, let's say we do pricing. We do it with an oligarchy first, and we do. I know Angela and Neil and a couple other folks mentioned wiki style, like administrative oversight formations and structures leadership board. So we'll just call it an administrative approach, and then finally an open gov or an open allocation, which is no hierarchy at all. If we apply pricing to all of those, is there going to be some sort of fatigue or some sort of, hey, we've already addressed this problem? Will there be enough separation, or will there be enough newness? When you're solving the same problem 3 times, even if you're using different approaches, does that skewer the process? No? Is that a crazy question, or no one's there? Nikita?
Do you mean to say that if you're solving the same issue 3 times with those 3 approaches, like, I mean, you run it the first time, everyone's gonna give him the ideas. So how would it affect the second and the third time? Something like that?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find out. And everyone, Aditi and Ankita has joined the call, so welcome.
Hi.
Yeah, that was really the question. Would there be any either some residual carryover, or some echoing, or some of these psychosocial issues I just don't know. Can we really address each approach cleanly? I don't know. I'm asking more than anything else. Or does everyone think that we can just we have enough we're gonna be able to look at each engagement clearly and freshly and have minimal carryover from the prior experiment? The
Yeah,
DT.
the previous experiment, for sure.
What's
Yeah,
that?
can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
No, what you said makes sense. Like, the first one, right, is the oligarchy one. There'll definitely be some carryover in the democracy one and the open allocation one. What I'm concerned about is if you have that one issue repeated 3 times,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna give all their ideas the first time. So what's gonna be left for the second and third time? So can you really measure a crowd response in that case?
I don't know. I think these are some of the pressing problems that we should really think through because I like the concept of testing one feature. Okay, it makes a lot of sense because as you and then Kita, I think Mohammed and a bunch of other folks have mentioned that where are the comparables? I I was going down the road of just being able to that if we were going to use the original philosophy, you take three different approaches, three different features, that we would be looking at contribution, we'd be looking at engagement, we'd be looking at speed, some of those other variables that wouldn't necessarily need, you wouldn't need direct correlation or some normalization across all three of the experiments to get some comparables. So that's kind of the road I was going down. I don't know how valid that is.
I think Alison had a good point. She says that if we went from least open to most open government, it might work. So the ideas wouldn't repeat and it wouldn't interfere with each experiment.
So I
So
know Al doesn't have a phone right now, but Ankita, when you hear that, what then does that mean to you? How would you then stage the experiment?
so you would start with the leadership board and then probably go to participatory democracy
Okay,
and then go to the last one.
an open allocation.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Why do you think that works?
Because
Or
the first method is the leadership board. So the people don't really have a say in it.
yeah.
So I don't, and yeah, and then in the second one, they would probably come up with a few ideas and it would be bounced back and forth. And the third one, the people get to choose everything they want. So I don't think the first two should affect the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you talk it out like that, that sounds like that could work. Okay.
Yeah.
Should we use pricing, or should we use another idea? I personally think it's a nice, it's got enough weight and meat to it that that it can engage a lot of people. I don't think there's anyone. I think there's few people that are going to be like, I'm not interested in pricing.
Another thing we need to consider is, are we talking about the building phase and the guiding phase that you spoke about?
Well,
So,
that's a good question. I think that as I talked to, as we were all having these critical conversations, both on Slack and otherwise, one of the complications that was coming up was, the applicability. So I'm thinking maybe from just an experiment perspective, we just focus on the here and the now and say that this is just a leadership experiment for the build. That as we're looking at building, some analysis and we're going to ask some questions, we should keep an eye on, all right, what questions are we going to ask so we can get as much carryover into the leadership during the actual execution. I think there's a potential there for a lot, but it would require us to ask all the right questions, and to set it up nicely for, okay, we've already tested this. We've found that in the build phase, the administrative piece worked really well. It had some weaknesses that we think would have an impact on when we're running the organization, but we're aware of them. We're okay with them. We'll just move forward with it. That kind of thing.
Okay, but some of the problems that we face during the build phase might not make sense in the live phase,
Yeah.
like pricing and like rule guideline decisions. All those things have to be made right now, right, before the platform is launched.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
And that leads. I mean, when I hear that, it's almost like you can almost scale down the leadership piece. That it might be, some of the big impressing pieces have already been taken care of. So then there's like, well, how much of a leadership board do we actually need when we're live?
But what I'm not sure is if one system of government might work for the build phase and another might work for the other for the live phase. So does it make sense to follow the same thing? I mean, I'm not sure.
Let's mull that over a little bit, because I think we can either address with some questions or another piece of another experiment in parallel.
Okay.
Now, James, hi James, I know you're listening. He poses another question. So we had, I think there's a good idea of utilizing one idea to test all three models. He says, and I'm just going to read his post on Slack if you guys don't have it. He's suggesting, quote unquote, one simple comparison would be participation rate based on the topic being discussed. He feels, I have a feeling the leadership board would really shine when handling things that might seem boring to the average user. On the other hand, if there was a discussion about a platform-wide tax, I would expect a high participation rate from the average user. So the next question is how to make this into an experiment. Thank you, James, for the complication. But he does add a spin, and the spin is participation, contribution. Is it about the form, the organizational model, or the things that the organizational model is going to do? And I think, Ankita, you brought that up as well. It's like, I think Muhammad did as well. It's like, if you're not interested in the theme, you may not want to participate then in the experiment related to that organizational model. So Al's going to suggest that perhaps we should do two projects. One in which we deal with a boring topic, air quotes, and the other one a hot topic, also air quotes. But that does strike to both sides of the equation, because we're looking at how individuals, we want to get them engaged.
Yeah, and probably from the participation of those two experiments, we can also figure out which topics work for which democracy. And
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had scheduled, I had framed this out over, I think it was 6 weeks. So maybe let's take a step back. What if we, okay, and DT, could we split up the crowd into 3 groups and run common issue across all 3 with different? Wow, DT, you're bold. Why not? Why can't we? So and DT, I don't know. Can you all see the group chat on your Hangout? And DT, do you want to explain further on that?
Okay, so 2020. So you one group will follow the democratic approach, one will follow the open allocation, and the third one follow the oligarchy, and see the result and the response for all three. But the only problem is we do not have enough participants.
Yep. That's what Allison posted as well. Yeah, that is the challenge.
Yeah, so that's gonna be a thing. Can we?
What's that, DT? Hello.
Yeah, can we type in external people?
That could be a sticky wicket. I mean, so here's maybe another approach. I mean, we had 7 people that Rajan that have been active on the Slack over the last month, active enough that they participated in the election. Of those folks, we had about 38, 40 folks that actually voted.
Okay.
So let's use that as a user group. We got 40 folks, not a bad sample size, but in order for us to be able to get some actionable data, we're going to need a high level of commitment and participation from all those people.
Fair enough.
And, as Al mentioned, how many of these folks that are actually going to be interested in our subject matter in the life?
Yeah.
Those there.
Okay.
But do we have 6 weeks? Do we have enough time for card paper? Or can we shorten each of the experiments to?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Ankita. I'm wondering that if we do just one idea now, or let's rephrase. We'll do a cool idea. Well, let's consider pricing cool, and then we'll do a non-cool idea, like the color of our corporate colors. Okay. And so instead of 6 weeks, because we won't need as much deliberation, let's just say we do the cool idea first. We'll take pricing and we'll do a 3 weeks. First week we do oligarchy, second one admin, the third one OpenGov or open allocation. And they'll be really compressed. Let me think this through, but I think we might be able to pull that off. We have to strip it down a little bit, but we can then do 2 3-week sequences. So we do the boring one first, the more interesting one second. We can set some rules that, hey, if you want to participate in the cool stuff, you got to be part of the boring stuff. So we can have some commonality. Set some very vague, general, but purposeful experiment rules, and run it from there. So that gives us 2 data sets. This group here, we can craft together some questions and run it from there.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Would it make sense to run a cool idea and a not so cool idea, boring idea at the same time, like parallelly, so that we get to figure out what people like is what people think is cool and what people.
That's devious. I like that because that really defines where people's interests.
Yeah, so we figure out who finds what cool and who finds what boring. So I mean, we get interest groups based on that.
Perfect. I like it. Yeah. So.
And that way we could cut it down to 3 weeks, and hopefully have time to get something.
And then we could do 2 sequences potentially, so we could have 4 data sets.
If we have the time for it. Yeah.
Oh, we have the time. It's a matter of just, are we going to have fatigue, research, survey. But yeah, then we wouldn't have to have as many rules. We could let the crowd self-sort. Interesting. And then that because I think Aditi may have mentioned, or no, Aditi you did, is that when we move into, we solve all the cool, sexy things now as part of the build, that what's left is then going to be the mundane things. It's going to be the boring stuff. And if we have a very flat, the crowd is managing itself kind of thing, or even just administrative oversight, and nobody wants to do that stuff, then you're going to have you're going to have a very interesting set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And it may, the boring stuff lends itself to having an oligarchy.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And that would be a tremendous irony for this whole thing. Okay. So I think then that almost kind of requires, not requires, but we should still do oligarchy and administrative and open gov, or again, open allocation style. We'll pick 2 questions, and let's, if we've got about 18 minutes, we can do it now. Yes, Alice. What I mean, oligarchy, top down, leadership board making decisions, and then binding decisions, and then telling the group, telling the crowd what we're going to do instead of asking. So, how about we pick the questions we should be, or the features we should be discussing? I thought we have pricing. I threw tongue-in-cheek the color of the platform out there, but James chimed in that he liked that that as an option. Allison gave a little more context as to what she considers boring. It's like, and I'm sorry for everyone who's going to see this later on. What we mean by boring is basically activities that are integral to the platform's maintenance and sustainability. I think that's not a bad definition of boring.
Kumbhal's got an interesting idea or an interesting approach. So you mix up your oligarchy or the first one, and only if whatever the leadership board implements, right, if 50% of the requesters or workers object to it, the entire thing, I'm guessing the idea is revisited again. So this prevents LB from passing rules which are not accepted by the crowd, in a way.
You faded out on me a little bit. I got a little bit, and what I heard, I was intrigued by. Could you try that again, Aditi? I'm sorry.
The second scenario, testing. The decisions taken by LB is directly been implemented, and it could be revisited only if 50% of both requesters and workers object to it. So this kind of balances it out, and
yeah, that is definitely a tempering agent.
Okay.
Let me hop back on the slide. There's a lot of craziness going on here. Yeah, Al. I think we can. Al's asking about the timeliness. Whether we're going to have enough time to, if we. So Aditi, you raise a kind of a procedural mechanism that adds time to the process. So perhaps. So let's all think about some things. Let's think about the time. We've got 6-7 weeks to roll this out. Is it better for us to take the whole 6 weeks, give each organizational model 2 weeks, so we could fold in, some of the procedural checks and balances for each, and give us an honest assessment, and start delving into, how, I want to almost say realistic. We can make the experiment, as far as, not everyone who participates in these processes is, kind of hardwired for the rapid prototyping that we're suggesting. So as far as, participation and contributing, I don't want to inadvertently, kind of exclude those quote-unquote slow processors, or those folks that are very contemplative in their decision making.
Okay.
So let's think about time. We've got the time. How are we going to use it? All right.
Okay.
Does the group feel we should just do, a boring and a sexy one for 6 weeks? Or I think the other alternative is to do a boring and a sexy one and do two brackets. Do a 3 week and then a 3 week, and see how that flies. With the understanding that we pick that from the first 3 weeks, if we're going to do that, are we going to take that feedback and then apply it to the second series?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
instead of having a 2 week long governance for each one, it would make more sense to do a 1 week each for three of them, and sort of we get a feel of what the people are feeling, and then we can probably tweak our experiments for the next 3 weeks accordingly.
Where that puts us, though, folks, is that we all need to realize that if we're going to do the 6 weeks, that puts us right up against this submission deadline, okay? We're all going to have to really rally or figure out a way in which we can process the data on the fly, do the analytics as we are going through the enterprise, through the exercise, because we're going to have a precious amount of time at the back end to write this thing. It's a 10-page paper. We'll probably have 5 pages that we'll need to do. Okay. So let's also determine how comfortable we are with pushing the experiment that deep into our deadline. All right.
I have one
It's not going
concern.
to do us any good if we have all the data and we can't then turn around and execute on it.
Yeah. I have one concern. The thing is, the crowd is very erratic, and we're measuring the success of an experiment based on crowd response.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen for this entire project, right before the paper, a lot of people jump in. So the 3 weeks before the paper submission, right, you're gonna have a lot of people actually sitting and participating. So would that kind of affect the final results of the survey, of the experiments?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on one of the great ironies of the platform. It's people will flow in and flow out. And I don't know how, we can't obligate people to participate, but I think that is, as we're building our questions and we're looking at, the participation rate, we should do so as a baseline. Like, look, we have 78 folks that are active on the site. We've only had, only 4 are participating. That's a valid number. I think that there's an analytic there that we can do something with. So I think, again, as we're looking at some of the outputs and looking at what we're trying to achieve, I think we're on this track that we're going to have 2 concepts going in parallel. We'll have one sexy, one non-sexy. We'll see where they gravitate.
Okay.
Those are kind of micro ideas, but then within the meta, it's like we have 78 folks, 5 participated, 3 of them were worried about color, the 2 of them weren't. We can draw some, I think, at the end of the day, we can draw some assertions from that.
Okay.
I don't know what, but if we can reverse engineer or start thinking about that very real challenge, is that it's a feature of crowdsourcing that people are going to flow in and out. How does that impact then this exercise? How do we measure it? Do we put a value on it? Is that something that is a good research theme for us? I think it is, because you've raised it a couple times, and Keita has. We all have at one point or another. So what do we do with it? It's like that signal to noise conversations that we tend to have. Can we put a qualitative value on it?
I also feel if we're iterating the whole 3-week thing for the second time, and we take into consideration, so the first time we don't get too much participation, second time around we're closer to the paper, so we get more participation. So we can sort of take that into account and draw comparisons between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
I think there's, so as we're putting together some of the questions now, let's also look at some of the themes, because researching the research, that they're maybe kind of meta style questions, but if we're looking from the crowd perspective to look at engagement and contributions, it dovetails in quite nicely to the sexy non-sexy, the critical non-critical. It's an iteration of that theme. It's just relevant to our goal, which is the paper. Okay, folks, I'm in an awkward situation. My phone. Let's see. Let me see if I can pick up this. My computer is going to run out of juice, and of course, I did not bring my charger with me. So let me see if I can. I've been kind of dominating the conversation. Do we have? Are we missing anything here? We feel good about where we are right now.
Yep.
Okay. Since I'm gonna run out of power. Here's what I'll do. I will summarize. Let's send out a doc then amongst all of our group first. Let's make sure it captures all the sentiment of our discussion here. Then we'll share out with the crowd. Okay. In parallel, Mohammed is going to do some research into some satisfaction criteria. But as a group, if we can start looking at questions we want to ask, themes that should drive the output, some of the goals we want to achieve here. I think there have been a lot of great ideas here. I hope individually, the ones that you contributed, if you can please convert those into questions or themes or questions on questions. Let's then, if there's a bunch of that stuff, let's have another meeting either Thursday or Friday, button all this down so we can ramp up and start executing on Monday.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So as we're thinking about this, guys, let's also think about surveying. How are we going to collect the data? Should we do surveys? Are there some big data tools, NLP and the like we can use? Are there some other methods to help with this? Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to figure out specific questions that would give us valid data and answers to analyze.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will think over it.
Good. So then let's kind of anecdotally look at Friday as being a way then where we can review and evaluate those questions, really stress test them, and kind of normalize and standardize them. And I think that'll really move the needle for us.
I have a question here. Do you hear me?
Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah.
Should we stick with the second scenario, because I see we don't need to reach out to the crowd each time and ask them if they are agree with the LP board or not. We should move fast. I mean, when we choose the democracy, that means we are moving slow. It's not like centralized systems like Amazon or the traditional organizations. So let's try to reduce the steps and move fast with our platform. That every decision taken by LP should be active unless there is objection by 50% or more from the crowd. I mean, like they raise petition. I mean, it's kind of, yeah. This is my point here.
Well, let me do this, Mohammed. Let's synthesize. There's been a lot of ideas here, so let me frame out what some of the objective, the experiment parameters are, and then let's start on out there, and let's just modify, tweak questions or concerns. So instead of dealing with the hypotheticals, let's look at that. Another thing that I forgot, instead of while we're asking questions, let's also look at some of the boring and the sexy themes that we think we should be addressing. Okay, because I think there's some real world takeaways from there. So we talked about pricing and color, but let's think of some of the other, some of the basic things that need to get done on either a daily or a regular basis that are real world and good counterfactuals to something that's a little more sexy. So let's kind of rummage that around as well. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Can we also reach out to the crowd and ask them? I mean, and try to reach out to them and ask for their opinion about the three models we are going to apply. I mean, it's their platform at the end of the day, and those people who are currently working on Amazon or Upwork are the ones who are going to use the platform. So it's their future. It's not our future only.
Hello?
Is anyone there?
Did anyone? Yeah.
Oh, Alan is there. Hey, Juichi, do you have any thoughts or contributions? Hey, she's on mute.
I think Triangle's battery went out.
Okay. Okay, Alison, anything more you want to add? Kambal? Okay, Alison doesn't have a mic. Ankita, anything more you want to add?
I think we're
Alright,
good.
cool.
We
We're good,
yeah.
so we wrap it up.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye bye.